Hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Ex-Boyfriend Recovery Podcast, episode number 58. So, if you look around, if you are watching this on YouTube, or if you're listening to this, we've made a few changes with the office here. Behind me, I have a very, very nice looking, I don't know what you call it, a logo or something, and also a glass dry erase board, which you can really see this really well on YouTube if you come and look. The reason I'm telling you this is because, number one, it looks really cool. And number two, it also helps us be more productive and helps our authority so you know that we are in this for the long run. We aren't just one of those little websites that pop up that has kind of a good run for a year. We are in this to win it, so to speak. But anyways, you probably don't care about that. No, what you probably care about is learning about your ex-boyfriend or learning about how men think or act in general. And we have one hell of an episode for you today. Today we're going to hear from a woman named Mackenzie. Now, Mackenzie is in a difficult situation. So difficult, in fact, that she ended up sending me 3 voicemails. It's one of those things where oftentimes when you're asking someone for help, the best way to get help is to continually be open with your situation, so to speak. And that's difficult for a lot of people because a lot of people don't want to let it all fly out there. Now, what I imagine happened with Mackenzie is that she left me a general voicemail, like most people do. And I imagine after the voicemail was finished, she realized, oh wait, I left a few things out. Now, when it comes to getting an ex back, or it comes to recovering from a breakup, or just getting through a breakup, the more information that you can provide me, the better. And it's a little bit difficult too because there is a 90-second maximum on the voicemails that you can record for this podcast. So what I'm going to do for you, and this is something that I think I've only done it once in one episode where I kind of did like a rapid fire question from a woman who just kept asking me question after question after question. And it turned out that episode turned out into being one of our top episodes ever. So today I'm going to be playing 2 of Mackenzie's voicemails. The third voicemail that she sent me has her number in it, and I want to respect her privacy, certainly, and it really doesn't have anything to do with her situation. She was just asking me if I would coach her. Which, believe it or not, Mackenzie, if you are listening to this, and I know I sent you an email letting you know that we picked your question for the podcast, if you are listening to this, we are going to be doing free live coaching sessions on the air on this podcast. So watch out for that. We would love to have you on. But for now, I'm going to, like I said, play 2 of her voicemails, and we are going to dissect her situation and help her out the best we can. So here you go. Here are 2 of the voicemails that Mackenzie sent to me.
Hi, this is Mackenzie, and I really need your help. I was broken up with 10 days ago, and I'm on my 9th day of no contact with my ex. We dated 9 weeks, and we are both 28 years old. We got very serious very quickly. He was very expressive in making me aware of how head over heels he was for me, and that he's never felt this way about anyone. It was simply amazing because we were both infatuated with one another. He invited me to fly to Milwaukee with him over the 4th of July to spend the holiday with his family, which I met for the first time. I loved them, and they loved me. It was awesome. I was the first girl that he has ever brought home to meet the family. About 3 weeks ago, he started acting distant. Simply put, he seemed very bleak. I was so convinced he was the one, and I thought he felt the same way based on what he has expressed to me in the past. He really couldn't give me a reason for the breakup other than he just isn't happy and that things just aren't right. He repeatedly told me things just aren't right. The day he broke up with me, he removed our relationship on Facebook. Around day 5 after our breakup, I noticed that he hid the tagged photos of him and I on Facebook. There are 3 photos I've previously posted of him that he kept shown on his Facebook. These are photos without me, but have captions referencing my guy. I am so confused by the entire situation, starting with the breakup and also understanding his Facebook motives. I'm on day 9 of no contact. I have not made a point to contact him and have not heard from him. Please help. Hey Chris, this is Mackenzie again. I just sent you an audio message, but I wanted to provide you with just a little bit more information to help you gain a better understanding of my ex-boyfriend's current stressors in life, I guess. About 2 weeks after we started dating, keep in mind we dated 9 weeks. 2 weeks after we started dating, he gained 2 roommates, and his roommates are 22 and 23 years old. And that was kind of a big change, as he owns his home and he's lived by himself for quite a while. His roommates do have girlfriends. They're very nice guys, but maturity level, I think there's a little bit of a difference considering we are 28 years old. Additionally, my ex-boyfriend a month and a half ago received genetic testing results, and he tested positive for a heart mutation in which it restricts him from working out. His grandmother and aunt both passed away from this, and he sees a cardiologist this week, but that could be stressing him out, and also his workload has been crazy. But I feel like all of these factors he is taking out on me. I don't know. I wanted to give you that insight, and I hope it helps, but I'm so confused and I'm so thrown through a loop. And any help would be great.
Okay, thank you for reaching out to me, Mackenzie. Promise you I'm going to do everything in my power to help you and your situation. Now, before I get into it, let's do a quick recap of what's going on, because you threw out a lot of information. And oftentimes, some of the information that people can throw out don't really matter as much as other pieces. So I'm just going to recite to you what I think are the most important pieces of information in your particular situation. And I do want to commend you. The fact that you were able to get me so much information just means that the advice that I'm going to be able to tailor towards you is going to be just that much better. So here is Mackenzie's situation. She's currently in day 9 of the no contact rule. So she is maybe a third of the way through. When you look at the relationship that she had with her ex, they dated for a total of 9 weeks, which doesn't sound like a lot to most of the people out there, and I can certainly understand that. But Mackenzie assures us that it was an intense relationship and it was very serious, and he was very good about telling her how much it meant to him. Now, where it gets even more interesting is the fact that she is actually the first girl that he ever introduced to his family, which I am not quite sure I buy that. Maybe he just told you that, and maybe I could be completely wrong about this, but at 28 years old, which Mackenzie is 28 and also her ex is 28, I have a hard time believing that this is the first girl that he has ever introduced to his family. I just have a very hard time wrapping my mind around that. At 18, I had already introduced a girl to my family. So I'm pretty sure that maybe he just told you that to make you feel good. But I'm not quite sure I buy all of that, Mackenzie. So she met the family and it went really well. Then it seems like about 3 weeks later, things started to break a little bit. He would just constantly say, things aren't right, and eventually it caused a breakup. Now and obviously there's this Facebook situation too, where Mackenzie is very, very concerned about the fact that he took down all of their pictures together, but left a few of the pictures that she was tagged in, but she doesn't appear in. That's my understanding, at least. And that was the end of her first voicemail. And okay, I'm pretty sure using that voicemail could come up with a decent game plan, but it's a general game plan. There's nothing really tailored to her. It would just be sort of like, okay, this is what you do, which is kind of what I recommend everyone to do. But that's where the second voicemail comes into play. And I'm so happy that you sent this second voicemail, Mackenzie, because it holds a key piece of information. So the second voicemail talks about some of the external factors going on in his life that may have contributed to their breakup. So the first factor is the fact that he got 2 new roommates all of a sudden, a 22-year-old and a 23-year-old, which I would agree with Mackenzie. At 22 and 23, generally, a man is not going to be as mature as a 28-year-old man. He hasn't been through enough life experiences yet. And that could have certainly played a role in the breakup, Mackenzie. But perhaps I think the most important piece of information is this heart mutation. Turns out that her ex's, I believe, aunt and grandmother passed away from a heart mutation that he just tested positive for. Man, what a blow. And then, of course, she mentioned that his workload was crazy. So, that is the situation we have in a nutshell. And the more I played around and toyed around with this episode, and if you can see, I'm kind of holding my paper up to the cameras. I typically take pretty in-depth notes on everyone's situation. This part right here just focuses on the notes that I take about the situation. The rest is just kind of what I think she should do. And the more I played around with this episode, the more I realized that I think this would really work well if I divided this episode up into 3 parts. Part 1 is going to be talking about why I think Mackenzie's ex-boyfriend broke up with her. What caused him to do that when things seem to be going so well? Part 2 is going to talk about a little bit about the Facebook reasoning. Mackenzie was very concerned about the fact that her ex had taken down his Facebook profiles the Facebook pictures on his profile of them, but left a few up that she wasn't tagged in. So I'm going to talk about that and give you my 2 cents on that, Mackenzie. Then finally, I'm going to talk about what you should do going forward, and I think I have an excellent game plan prepared for you. So let's start with part 1. So why did he break up with you, Mackenzie? Generally, a man can break up with a woman for a lot of reasons. Now, I'm of the mind that actions always speak louder than words. And oftentimes when you're dealing with a breakup, specifically what a man says when they break up, you don't get a lot of honest answers. And there's a reason for that. Most men don't want to be honest with you about their breakup when they're breaking up with you because the real reason may hurt your feelings. And generally, I try to stay away from this topic as much as possible because oftentimes when a woman's trying to get her ex back, she's holding on to any little shred of hope that she can get. And when I come in and say, okay, here's what I think the real reason that he broke up with you, that he's just too scared to tell you, it can crush them. So I try to avoid it at all costs. Not to be mean, I'm sure I do. When people ask me directly, I will be honest with them. But oftentimes, I think ignorance is bliss a little bit when it comes to this, because oftentimes when you're trying to get an ex-boyfriend back, it doesn't really matter what the breakup reason is. You can follow the strategy and it can be just as effective. At least I have found that to be the case. Now, when we look at your situation, Mackenzie, you're a little bit unique. And it really boils down to that second voicemail that you sent me where you mentioned that he had a heart mutation. Now, this is a little striking to me because he already had a couple of family members in his family pass away as a result of this heart mutation, which is horrible. And I feel bad for him. It's a tough situation. He's basically facing his own mortality at this point. There are 2 things certain in life. There's, as the common quote goes, death and taxes. And right here we have death. He just was told that he has tested positive for a heart mutation of which he will probably die from one day. At least that's what he's thinking, but he's internalized it, but he hasn't said it externally. So he's thinking, I might not have a lot of time left. And imagine when a human being goes through or comes to that realization, things kind of get wonky. What they thought was important before they got this information that maybe I'm going to die in the next 10 years no longer becomes important. He becomes scared. He becomes frightened. And oftentimes I think of that movie, Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. It has Steve Carell in it. It has Keira Knightley. Essentially, the premise of the movie is there is a gigantic, I think it's been a while since I've seen it, so don't hold me to it. But I believe there's like a gigantic asteroid coming in that's going to impact Earth and blow it up. And people know about this. I think it's like a month out. And they realize they're just going to die. There's nothing they can do. They've tried to stop the asteroid. There's just nothing they can do. And the whole movie just revolves around Steve Carell, whose life just kind of falls apart in front of his eyes because everyone's going to die. And it just really goes to show what people will do once they realize they're going to die in exactly 30 days. There's nothing they can do about it. They just stop caring about the things that they normally cared about. Oftentimes, I think there was like a scene where a married woman tried to sleep with Steve Carell because she's going to die, and she's just kind of that mind like, well, I don't care about the repercussions anymore. And a little bit of that might be going on. Now, I don't think that's the entire reason why he broke up with you. He just doesn't want to stay committed right now. Maybe when he was dating you, he was really gung-ho about being committed, but now that he realizes he could maybe die, he doesn't care about that so much anymore. And I think it's almost prodded forth by these roommates that came in. Now, you mentioned they're the really nice guys, and they have girlfriends. So I have seen situations where a man gets a few new roommates, and all of a sudden, bang, they're single roommates. They try to tear him out of his relationship to come hang out with them. And I'm not saying that's what's happening with your ex-boyfriend, Mackenzie, but what I think is happening is they're young. They're probably not as serious about relationships as maybe he was. He sees that. He realizes I might not have my time is, I don't know how much time I have left. They're not too serious about their exes. They're not too serious about their girlfriends. They want to go out. They want to party a lot. I kind of want to have fun. I want to live it up with what time I have left. And like I said, I'm talking like he may have 50, 60 years left. He may have 10 years left. He may have 3 years left. I don't know. I don't know enough about the situation, but internally, I think this is the dialogue that's going on. I don't have all the time in the world left. I need to live it up while I can. And then, of course, you have work. You mentioned that his workload is insane. Now, when you couple this with the fact that he just realized his time is expiring on this earth as a result of his heart mutation that scared him to death, with the fact that he's working all the time and he's having this internal dialogue where he's thinking, you know what? I need to live it up while I can. I need to enjoy this life with what time I have left. And then half that time, maybe 60, 70% of the time is spent working. And then he looks at a relationship with you where you're essentially going to take up the extra 30% because relationships take work. Let's be honest. You have to commit time to the other person. And he's thinking, I have no time for myself to live it up. And I think that may be a cause of what's going on with the breakup. Now, like I said, I like to look at actions and not words. So I'm going to go against my advice a little bit here and talk and look at what he actually said. You mentioned he said things just aren't right. Now, he may be being honest with that. He may be saying things aren't right between us. But if you look at it with removing you, where he's just saying things aren't right with the situation, might make a little bit more sense. And I think personally that could be what's going on. Again, I could be completely off base with this, but when I try to internalize it myself and look at it as my point of view, I think this makes the most sense. Now, let's move on and talk about Facebook. What the heck is up with these Facebook pictures? So, in my opinion, it's pretty much common practice to erase Facebook pictures after a breakup. I remember when I went through a breakup, I went through my entire Facebook profile and got rid of all of my pictures of my ex. Why? Because I knew it would hurt me to look at the pictures, and I also knew it would irk her. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I knew, without even doing research, I must have been, 19 at the time, the first breakup I had. I knew that for a fact, she would be spying on my Facebook profile. Facebook was big back then, It was like the thing. It was how we communicated. So I knew for a fact she'd be looking at my Facebook profile. And studies have shown, I found a study by Veronica Lukacs. I don't know. It's a Western Ontario graduate student. She found that 90% of people end up spying on their exes after a breakup. That's staggering, 90%. So essentially that means you have a 90% chance after the breakup of your ex just strolling by your profile. And I've cited this multiple times. In fact, I'm going to create a link for you in the show notes of episode number 58 so you can actually read that study for yourself and see just how many people are actually doing this. Now, we're getting off topic here. I kind of do that sometimes when I get on a tangent. The thing we have to really look at here is this specifically meant to irk you? And I think it is. I think the fact that he is taking down his pictures means he knows you're going to look. He knows maybe it hurts him to look at things with you because let's be honest, the relationship went great. It's kind of hard, especially if we follow in that line of mortality type thing where he's thinking I might not have the most time left in the world, even though this is probably the best girl I've ever dated in my life. I don't want to get tied down because I want to live it up. Maybe it hurts to look at those pictures because things were so great with you. But the fact that he left a few up that you were tagged in, I wouldn't read too much into it. It means he may be trying to irk you. I'm not going to lie about that. He may know that you're going to come looking around. You're going to find the tagged ones, and it's going to annoy you, and you're going to kind of project your feelings onto him and not get over him. And men love to be admired. Let's not lie. Men love it. But it also could just be a simple fact of he's getting rid of the Facebook pictures. You're not in those particular pictures. He didn't see a need to remove them. He liked the way he looked in them, so he decided to keep them up. It could be as simple as that. Either one, 50-50. If I were a betting man, which I'm not because I'm horrible at it, but if I were a betting man, I would probably put all of my stock behind the fact that he was just removing all the pictures he could. You weren't in those pictures, even though you were tagged. He just decided to leave them up. It's less work. It can be a pain in the butt to go and erase a bunch of pictures, especially if you have like 800 pictures with that particular person. That's a lot of work just to remove all those pictures. And I think a lot of times women get really stuck on this idea of, oh my God, he left a few pictures up of me on Facebook. That's small stuff. Honestly, if you're trying to get your ex-boyfriend back, that's not going to mean anything in the grand scheme of things. Just because he left some pictures up of you doesn't mean anything. It's not going to help you get him back. So I wouldn't worry about it if I were you. Now, perfect segue. What should you do now that maybe we have a better understanding of what's going on with him, why he broke up with you, the Facebook profile stuff, everything? What should you do going forward, Mackenzie? Well, honestly, there's not a ton you can do different than the general strategies that I teach in Ex-Boyfriend Recovery Pro, which is my top ebook, kind of detailing the entire strategy of what you need to do to get your ex back, and on the website. I am going to give you some personal advice, though, Mackenzie, because I know that's what you are wanting. So when I thought about this situation, I thought, for a good hour, I've been prepping for this particular podcast. I thought, he has probably broken up with you as a result of the heart mutation thing. He's faced his own mortality. He realizes, you know what, I need to make the best of my time on this earth. And being in a relationship is going to tie me down. I'm not going to be able to have fun. I don't want to hurt her. So I think the best thing for everyone is if I just break up with her, things aren't right, blah, blah, blah. We know the story. We get it. Okay? Now here's the thing. One of the most fulfilling things that you can do on this earth, and take this from someone who's married in a lifelong commitment with someone, is to have a committed relationship, is to have children. These are the things that enrich your life. And he's going to come to that realization at some point. You can do everything in this world, but there's something about having a committed partner. Someone you can trust implicitly. Someone who you can start your life with, buy a house with, have children with, start a family with. There's just something about it. Human beings are the only animals on this world who try to stay in a committed relationship. Perhaps that's not entirely accurate, but we are one of the only animals in this world that try to have committed relationships with a person for life. You think about other animals, how they just mate, they move on. They mate again, they move on. That's kind of the way of life. That's how they survive. We're one of the few animals out there that try to stay mated with a partner for life. And there's just something special about that. And eventually he is going to want to experience that too. So I think what we have here is kind of a little bit of the grass is greener syndrome. The grass is greener syndrome may be spurred on by the fact that the heart mutation has come up. People in his particular family have died from this heart mutation thing. It's a really scary thing to go through, especially if you are frightened that you're going to die from it. So that action, what happened there spurred him to break up with you and try to, live life to the fullest. Grass is greener syndrome. He's thinking, okay, I kind of know what I got here. I kind of see where this is going with this Mackenzie girl. She's probably the most incredible girl that I've ever dated in my entire life. But I want to experience more of life. So I think we have a little bit of the grass is greener syndrome. But that actually is really good news for you, Mackenzie, and I'll tell you why. The fact that your relationship with him was so good, before the breakup, nothing was going wrong. He claims that you are the first girl he ever introduced to his family, and that's a good sign if that is true. Personally, don't think it's true. But that's a good sign if it is true, because it means things are very serious with you, and he was feeling things with you that he hadn't felt with other women before. And chances are, when he does meet other women out there, he's going to use you as the ultimate comparison. Does this new girl stand up to Mackenzie? Does this new girl stand up to Mackenzie? And the fact that you kind of broke up when you were in the midst of the honeymoon period, you had this unforeseen thing with the heart mutation happen. But the fact that you broke up when you were in the middle of the honeymoon period means it's going to be really hard for him to enter into a committed relationship and have the girl stack up compared to you. And that's really good news, because that means when he does eventually come around to the realization that, maybe a committed relationship is what I want. Maybe a family is what I want. Maybe having someone like Mackenzie is what I want. Oh, wait, Mackenzie, I wonder how she's doing. It can be kind of easier to get him back, I'm not going to lie. Now, let's talk about you specifically. One of the things you did is you left me 3 voicemails. Now, that tells me that you want him back bad. And this is really internally bothering you, And I think women, oftentimes who come to ex-boyfriend recovery, they have a tendency to let the situation with their ex just bear them down completely. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, women who come to ex-boyfriend recovery, they go through a breakup. And it's horrible, right? Everything about it hurts them inside. And then something else happens. They let that kind of seep into another part of their life, and it brings that part down. It's kind of like quicksand, how you get stuck in quicksand. You move and you kind of go down further, and then you try to move again to get out of it, and you go down further and further and further. One bad thing happens, and you try to compensate to improve that bad thing, and then another bad thing happens as a result, and eventually you're just up to your head in sand. We don't want that to happen to you, Mackenzie, and I think, the fact that you reached out to me so many times, the fact that this is bothering you so much, you are at risk of having that happen to you. I don't want that to happen to you. And so what I'm going to do for you is I think what you should do is make yourself feel good. Bear with me here. I know it sounds weird, but women who are trying to get their exes back oftentimes come from a place of obsession. They are obsessed and trying to get their exes back. Studies have been done that prove that when you go through a breakup, the same chemicals in your brain that are released are the same exact chemicals that are released in a drug addict. Now think about that for a moment. When you go through a breakup, you go through a withdrawal. You go through the same type of withdrawal, assuming the connection was strong enough that a drug addict would go through. Now that is scary. And I think women who approach a situation from a happier place as opposed to a negative place, which is what most women who come to ex-boyfriend recovery do. They try to approach their ex in a negative way. They're down on themselves. Their self-esteem is low. They haven't felt good about themselves. And they don't get their exes back. Whereas you have a woman who comes and tries to get her ex back, and she's excited about herself. She feels good about herself. Maybe she read a new book and it made her feel good. Maybe she's feeling good because she got into the best shape of her life. She looks better than she's ever looked before. Things are different. She's more confident. She knows more about history. She has more topics to talk about. Something tells me that particular woman is going to have an easier time of getting her ex back as opposed to someone who's just obsessed with her ex and has nothing new to bring to the table. Don't get me wrong. Getting an ex back is not easy. Anyone who tells you that it's easy is lying to you. And with that point, anyone who tells you that you can get your ex back 100% using this particular method is also lying to you. I can't guarantee that you're going to get your ex back, Mackenzie. All I can do is give you the particular skills, the particular tools necessary to improve your chances. And I think the best way for you to do that is to literally take care of yourself. Do things that make you feel good. Pick up a new hobby. Read a book that really is addicting, that you want to continue reading, that's something that really speaks to you. Learn a new skill. Work out more. Become more beautiful. Buy clothes. Get haircuts. Maybe clean up some of the acne that you're insecure about. Maybe get your teeth whitened. Do things that are going to make you feel good. Do things that only benefit you. I can't stress that enough. Too many times women beg for their exes back. Too many times women crawl, pleading, hoping that their ex is going to come back if they just say this one magic phrase. And it doesn't happen. I'm sorry to break it to you. It doesn't work like that. Women who do that are not doing anything to benefit themselves. When you take an action, Mackenzie, when you do something, I want you to ask one simple question. How does this benefit me? If you can't say, this benefits me in this way and it's positive, I don't want you to take that action. Do you understand? Do things that make you feel good. Try not to think about your ex. Seriously, I know it's weird, but if you think about your ex too much, you're playing into that addiction withdrawal thing. Don't think about your ex. Don't worry about him. Worry about yourself. Take care of yourself. If you've read my website, if you've gone, you read the books, you've read Ex-Boyfriend Recovery Pro, then you know what to do to get him back. You know the strategy that we have found that works best. But oftentimes, I can lead a horse to water, but I can't make it drink. I can't help the horse have a specific mindset. That's up to the horse. I can give a person the exact strategy that will improve their chances substantially to get their ex back. But if they're not in the right frame of mind, if they don't have what it takes to get their ex back, there's no way they will ever succeed, which is why I can't stress enough how you need to have a mindset of just making yourself feel good. It's going to play into other areas of your life. Instead of sinking down into the quicksand, you're going to sink up. You're going to get out of the quicksand. You're going to be able to walk away. You're going to be able to walk to your ex. And we've talked about your situation, Mackenzie. We know that your ex is facing his own mortality. He's afraid of dying. But eventually he's going to want to experience a committed relationship. And he is going to use you as the benchmark for getting for other women. He's going to say, Mackenzie was better. This girl has a lot going for her, but it didn't feel like it did with Mackenzie. And the more that happens, the more your chance of getting him back increases. Now, are you going to get him back in a couple months? Something tells me you're not. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't want to lead you on. I don't want you to think that you're going to get him back in a week. Okay? You can do things to stay relevant. Oftentimes, I think really the biggest proponent for him coming back to you, Mackenzie, is just him working through internally whatever he's feeling. Once he comes to that realization that he wants a commitment, he wants a relationship, he wants to get married, as long as you stay relevant, as long as you project yourself in a positive way into his life, without seeming pushy, without seeming begging, that doesn't even make sense, without seeming like you're begging for him back. That's kind of what I was trying to say. You're going to have a great chance. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Ex-Boyfriend Recovery Podcast. I know I got a little bit preachy at the end there, but I think it's for the best, Mackenzie. And I think you, going forward, if you listen to my advice, if you just do things that make you feel good, if you simply focus on every action I take has to benefit me in some way, shape, or form, if you can say, yes, this action benefits me, and say no to the actions that don't benefit you, you are going to be in a great spot of your life. And you may find that you meet someone new. And you may find that your ex comes back to you. That is kind of the best advice I think I can give you. Take care.